Right, I'd like to call this meeting of the West Essex Milwaukee School Board to order. Mr. Becker, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Susan, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Deal. Here. Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mrs. Carr. Here. Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mrs. Lee. Here. Mrs. Kaiser.
Here.
Mr. Sikich is on Zoom,
Yes,
and President Lee.
here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
There are no modifications.
All right, then we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
Good evening, community. We're going to go ahead and get started. We do have presentation that we've kind of embedded within the superintendent's report concerning the 90-day plan. And so I want to get into that. So first, let's talk about some legislative updates. They're requiring school boards to use competitive bidding and award contracts to the lowest bidder. Specifically, if a contract exceeds $150,000, then that particular contract will be awarded to the lowest bidder if the estimated cost exceeds that particular amount. That's the gist of that particular legislation. We do have some shout outs that I want to go through real quick. Ms. Henderson, music teacher at FLW. Ms. Henderson included the TLC students in the holiday concert. It is the first time that our students are included in the night concert. She worked tirelessly to make them the best they could be. And for that, she deserves his recognition. I definitely want to echo that congratulations and thank you to Ms. Henderson as well as the other teachers at FLW for an excellent concert on last week. I mentioned this at our last board workshop. We invited a group of leaders, student leaders, into to have lunch with me, and it was just a casual conversation. But what came out of it is a working group that will assist me on a monthly basis and really help drive the direction of improvement for our district from the student perspective. I think often at this particular level, we take for granted the voices of students and making decisions. And we take it from an adult perspective, but we fail to just really involve them in the conversation. And that's something that we're trying to be intentional about. So we had students from Hale, Central, Gotke, and DLVA participate in that conversation. Again, this will be a monthly conversation. I want to thank Melvin Biko Johnson and Dr. Stewart for helping to get that particular event coordinated, as well as the working group. The Into the Woods. When I tell you I was blown away by this performance, I'm not exaggerating. I was truly blown away. Matt Lesser pumped it up. He told me 2 weeks prior, he said, you got to go to this production. And when I tell you he didn't exaggerate at all, he did not exaggerate. It was an awesome event. And I actually saw him again there. I think he went twice. He said that he goes to the opening and he goes to the last show. I had the opportunity of attending the last show and had the opportunity to take a picture with the entire staff, cast. Thank you. The cast, as well as background stage attendance. So thank you for allowing me to participate and just to be involved in that particular event. Horace Mann, Principal Greg Burton, in regards to family engagement, the 4K team at Horace Mann continues to be exemplary. Thank you to Tara Rondinelli, Mark Babian, and Amanda Hishman for inviting families into your space to learn with you. The families really enjoyed your family fall family event, and that again comes from Greg Burton, principal at Horace Mann. Recreation and Community Service, Shelley Strasser submitted. Recreation and Community Services would like to recognize Bobby Foreman for his leadership and initiative in creating the Warm Hearts Full Plates program. Through building relationships and partnerships along with his fundraising efforts, he was able to provide Thanksgiving meals, items to make the meal, and warm outerwear to over 75 students and their families this Thanksgiving season. We're thankful and grateful for his service to our community. We would also like to thank Angela Howard from the Wilson School, who made the extra effort to pick up meals and supplies and deliver them to Wilson families experiencing transportation barriers. Just want to kind of remind our board and the community, Bobby is also the person who was involved with the haircuts for students event at the beginning of the year. He's doing some outstanding work that really connects our community with our district. And so again, we want to send a special shout out to Bobby Foreman for the work that he did with the warm hearts and the plates. Some community events and meetings. Snack with the superintendent, first year teachers was held on 11/14. Coffee with the superintendent, 11/15. Meeting with the MATC West Campus Leadership, 11/15. Snacks with the superintendent, the interns and student teachers, 11/16. Rotary Club meeting, 11/16. Referendum community engagement session was also held on the 16th, as well as the FLW concert on the 16th of November. Lunch with the superintendent student advisory committee was on the 17th. Wilson Elementary School PTA game night on 11/17. Attended the performance for Into the Woods, as I stated a little earlier. Participated in instructional rounds and Mars robotic demo at Docky on 11/20. Met with first year teachers at Central High School on 11/21. Docky PBL, I actually attended the all school Thanksgiving event on 11/21, and board meeting 101s occurred since our last meeting. So I want to kind of get into the updates and some of the findings concerning the 90-day plan. And I want to also kind of preface this last presentation or next presentation with we did a pretty exhaustive preview last week with the instructional process that we're taking to improve our rating. And so a lot of the instructional things you can definitely connect it with our logic model that was presented last week. I will kind of refer to that throughout at some points, but just want to kind of bring that back to your attention. That has also been will be added on the website at some point to as a guide for the community. So 3 phases are listening and learning, learning, leading, and analyzing. And then phase 3 was our leading and monitoring. And so we're currently in that, definitely in the leading and monitoring. 5 areas of focus. We've started with these particular 5 areas at each one of our meetings. We reminded the community that we are a team of 10, and that team of 10 includes myself as well as our 9 board members. Community focus and engagement, deeper learning and curriculum and instruction, data and accountability, and then equity, student supports are the 5 areas of focus. I always go back to this particular slide. The 3 A's are very important to me: accessibility, availability, and then accountability. And we're going to kind of talk about the accountability, not from a number standpoint, but accountability from my role as a superintendent, and then how we're going to kind of cascade some of that stuff down. So the listening and learning sessions, the months of October and November were filled with a lot of conversations. I can tell you, following the November 3rd meeting at Horace Mann, I was glad they were over with, but at the same time, I realized that there's still a lot of work to do. Like, now it's time to get down to business and get down to figuring out, well, what did we find? What are those things that we need to do to improve? What have we already started to do? And then what are some adjustments that need to be made? So let's get into it. The community engagement efforts that included 15 listening and learning sessions, community visits, City of West Allis with Mayor Devine, Village of West Milwaukee, Village President Stileski, Lions Club, Rotary Women's Club, as well as conversations with Kiwanis who attended the Coffee with the Soup on last week, auxiliary group and student advisory, students, new teachers, interns, teachers union, PTA council, principal advisory committee meetings, as well as our board members. I did not put that down, but board members as well. Then our coffee with community members, parents, and also that also included some former board members who took me up on an invite for coffee. So our listening and learning sessions data, 15 sessions with 292 total attendees. And these were the 5 questions that were posed for our community. I believe that school district communications are timely and accurate. On a scale from 1 to 5, we had an average score of 4.32. We did put an emphasis on focusing. And so at times you would see that change the score a bit, but just want to kind of preface that information with that particular comment. I believe that deeper learning is preparing my child for success in school, career, and life. And on a scale from 1 to 5, that received a 4.04. We also learned from this particular question that we have to do a better job of kind of messaging what deeper learning is, what it encompasses. It's really not a new phenomenon. It's just great ways of teaching and learning through research. And so that's something that we have to work on messaging a bit, because I think at times there was some confusion about that really could play into what that score really is. So it could be good or bad, but that's just stating the facts. I believe that this school provides a safe environment for my child to learn, and that was a 4.18. I believe the physical space my child learns in every day is adequate and is up to date. This particular question or statement was the lowest score on an average of 3.11, which I will tell you tells you why we're going to referendum in November of 2024. So the community agrees that this is an area of concern, and it's the data doesn't lie when it comes to this particular score. I believe that special education services and all other student support services provide an appropriate and inclusive experience for my child. And that's an average of 4.08, 4 out of 5. One of the things that we did provide for the community is a link to all of the notes from each one of those sessions. It's divided by section on that particular document. That will be available as well on the website if we can't get it linked from this presentation. The board has access in this presentation as well. So here are some themes though. When you look at data, it's important that you look at data from a triangulation standpoint. In other words, you can't look at it one-sided. So we try to take the quantitative side, which you just saw in those numbers. And then we also wanted to look at the qualitative side. And the qualitative side is looking at themes specifically. So here are some strengths that our district has hardworking staff. That's not just teachers, that's our clerks, our principals. There's a true believing that our individual staff members are hardworking, and that's a great strength. There's love and concern around the success of our district. Everybody wants to see us succeed. District communication and engagement, there was a positive. People viewed that as definitely that they know what's going on. They believe that they have enough opportunities to communicate with the district. They believe that the communication is engaging. In other words, it's not just the community, the district talking to the community, but the community has an opportunity to also be heard. And I think that's very important. They also believe that there's a shift in school environment and culture in a positive manner. Okay, so that's something that we noted as strengths. Now, opportunities. Okay. So when we were creating this presentation tonight, Dr. Stewart and I, we kind of had a discussion and said, okay, I said, Dr. Stewart, I don't see weaknesses. She says, no, opportunities, there are a lot of weaknesses in there. And I agree. And I said, well, opportunities is a better way of saying it. So that's what we went with. Okay. So safety. Safety has to be our number one priority when our taxpayers send their kids to our schools. They want to know that they're safe. And safety includes the playground equipment. We heard that repeatedly, specifically at Mitchell and Pershing were the two that come to mind concerning that. Athletic fields. And when I say athletic fields, I'm talking about more like the restrooms, the restrooms also at Hale. I keep hearing that as well. The traffic, restrooms, and online. I see online on here. What is, I don't remember that being part of it. Dr. Stewart,
I think, no, I think that was came up quite a lot in DLVA's.
Gotcha. So the type of the environments of around online education, that was the concern. I got you now. Consistency in parent communication, timelines and platforms. Specifically, we have schools that use this version to communicate, and some they use this version. And so the district does not have one particular communication tool that they've said, okay, we need all schools to use this. And it kind of, it can be what I would say, a problem with parents because, if they're used to using, Schoology and they're used to using some other app, it could be a bit of inconsistent. And so that's something that we're going to possibly look into and trying to see where are we on how we communicate with parents, but also parent communication needs to be more than just reminders about athletics. It needs to be more than my child did something bad. How are they doing consistently? So really trying to create a model where parents feel that they are in the loop as to their kids' education. I know Mr. Burns and I had a conversation about that today. Even as parents, we're concerned, even though we're sitting up on the podium here, we have those same concerns, and so that's consistent. Retaining teachers and substitute teachers as well. Trying to think of ways to really check the pulse of our employees, and at the same time, how are we working to retain? We talked about that in depth last week within the logic model. That's going to be structured within our human resources goals as well. Clarity of purpose and benefits of deeper learning. We have to do a better job of educating our community on what that is, and making it not just this what it kind of appears to some people as if it's just a flashy ball, but it's really just consistent practices. And if we're using them on a consistent basis and making sure that they're part of the daily learning that their kid is receiving, then it shouldn't be a question about what it is. So we have to do a better job of messaging that. And then the need for a future referendum. That's an opportunity for us. That's an opportunity based on this data that if we have an issue with safety, we have an issue with facilities. These are all concerns. We have an issue with retaining teachers. These are all concerns and solutions that a referendum could actually help resolve. And so just thinking along those lines as this is being an opportunity. So what's next? We are continuing to offer opportunities of engagement with a variety of audiences. And so thanks to Dr. Stewart, who likes working me and getting me out there, we're going to start our brown bag lunch series with schools. And so what I'm going to simply do is just sit in the lounge. I'm going to have my brown bag, and anybody who wants to come and have a conversation, I will be available. And it's just an opportunity. It's an option thing. If they just want to have a quick conversation and very informal, but we do not want there to be an excuse that I'm not available or they don't know who to go to for answers. I can help provide that. And so this is a sort of a brown bag series where we're going to create that opportunity for our teachers and our staff members. Our retiree breakfast, December 13th. We really want to bring our retirees back, and I understand that we have hard copies going out in the mail very soon. We did do a recent email blast, but I'm understanding that some may not have received it, and we'll check email addresses and those things to make sure that everyone receives that. But I do want to put the word out that we are having a retiree breakfast on December 13th. And location, Dr. Stewart?
The rec center.
The rec center, okay. We are proud to announce one of our newest partnerships with Carroll University. And this partnership will really work on building capacity in our employees, specifically focusing on literacy with our teachers so they can become literacy specialists, as well as our employees who are currently working as EAs. There's an opportunity for discounted tuition if they want to go and receive a certification or just a 4-year degree and the possible certification as well to teach. In addition to that, program for masters for any teachers who want to go up to the administrative level. We also have discounted tuition for these particular programs. I believe all offer up to 30% discount on tuition. Wow. And so if we know the rise in tuition is real, based upon our student loan statements, that's real. So we have to try to eliminate that barrier of why someone is not going to school. And that's our effort as a district. We're also in the final stages of securing this partnership with MATC. I know I've kind of teased it at several of the listening and learning sessions, but we did have a follow-up meeting on November 15th that included all three of our high school principals, Adaki, Hale, as well as Central, who were tasked with some homework and coming up with certain pathways that their student population would be interested in. I'm proud to say all of our principals came with their homework completed. Thank you, Mr. Lesser. I know he's in the audience. That's why I'm messing with him right now. And we had a great conversation in trying to figure out what are the next steps? What are the barriers that we have for this partnership? And then thinking ahead of time, how do we remove these barriers and make them now part of the success that we're achieving? The goal is simple. The goal is increasing the dual credit opportunities for high school students. I have this ambitious goal that overall, each incoming freshman should have the opportunity to attain an associate's degree at graduation from high school. That's my ambitious goal. Now, I put it out there for MATC, and they said, why can't it happen? And so that's where we're in the final stages of trying to figure out what are those barriers that continue to get in our way, such as staffing. That's a real issue. In order to be an MATC staff member, you have to have a master's in that particular subject area and then be MATC approved. The MATC approved part is not a problem. The part that may be a challenge is the master's part. Well, if that's the case, then we have to work around and how do we substitute that? How do we work around that? And that's where there may be an opportunity where we have online classes, then all three schools can actually participate in that particular course because it's online. So we would only need in that particular example, one teacher. So we were trying to be very creative in how we roll this out, but ideally it would be in a dual credit situation where the teacher of record, the algebra teacher who has a master's in math would be able to provide that particular credit for that particular course. Additional opportunities that we have, again, are our coffee with the superintendent. We will be at Valentine's Coffee on December 11th. That will be our final one for this semester. And then again, our fall referendum, our 2024 referendum, we have another open forum conversation on December 5th, and then on the 19th of December, and then we'll follow up on January 10th with the referendum meeting at Central. We had a brand new audience. When I say brand new audience, I've engaged a lot of audiences, and it was good to see fresh faces. And so I can tell the word is out. When I asked the question, how did you find out about tonight? They said the Miller. And so we will continue to try to engage different audiences because we know that in order for this referendum to pass, it's going to have to involve the people who have not been to the listening and learning sessions, but who are just voting members of the community. So we want to make sure that we're engaging them. What I want to do is I want to stop or pause, I should say. Are there any questions before we get into our final part? Any questions about the findings from the 90-day plan? Any questions? And keeping in mind, I should have combined last week's with this week's. Last week's was robust. And I told Mr. Burns, don't be disappointed tonight, because last week's was a heavy lift that my team and I put together. But I just wanted to remind you that a lot of that last week is put into this plan as well. Any questions?
Most
Yes, sir.
fantastic.
One, I'm really happy to see the student advisory group is getting involved. That's been a real it's been a conversation for a while, so really good to see it happening. And I know we've all discussed maybe having students involved in the board at some point. Is the intention to have somebody from that group come and represent the students here, at least from time to time?
So I would not have a problem with it. Of course, that will be a board decision to make. But I can tell you that we have some individuals, all of the individuals on that particular advisory committee that would make excellent committee members, or whatever you would like to call them. It was just good to get these kids in the room, even the DLVA, how now DLBA students have a different issue that's not in a live setting, they're in a virtual environment. But to see the students from the brick and mortar campuses work with them and exchange information and say, we can help you get this together. I just sat back and just watched to see the camaraderie and the rapport that those kids quickly built. I can tell you, it'll definitely be beneficial to the board to have that voice. If nothing else, I think it's good to have a student's voice. Yes, ma'am.
Just to piggyback on that, I've been pushing for a non-voting student person for years. At WASB in January, there is a session on it. So I'm gonna be going to that session to learn more about, because other districts do it. I want to know how we can do it with authenticity, because we do have so many high schools. So that is something that's being.
Yeah, I've seen other districts do it. It's sort of a revolving thing where one school will be represented maybe for the year kind of thing, and it rotates. So there's a way we could do it, but I don't think either way we do it, they all feel like they have a voice at the table. I think that's important. Having one school to be the representative wouldn't be a problem. They would definitely understand that, but they just appreciate the opportunity to have, to have a say so of sorts, to have a listening ear. And then as they kind of reflect on policies that they may not have liked at some point, to hear them say, oh, we actually like the cell phone policy now. We see why it's beneficial. That was like, wow, thank you for being honest. I mean, it's kids, they react in a certain way where they think everything is punitive, but they don't get a chance. As adults, we kind of are more patient on things, and for them to reflect that after the fact, that was pretty good. Especially one of the students who sent me a long email before I even came aboard about how she was disgusted by the plan. To hear her say, no, I actually think it's a great thing. So that's good to hear.
Questions? Because I just said one regarding the MATC partnership. I guess next steps, I know you talked about barriers. Is there an expectation for an update by a certain time frame? Or obviously, once things are ironed out, we want to communicate that to our families and community as well. So, what are next steps for that?
Great question. So next steps, we have a meeting scheduled for December 15th. At that particular meeting, there will be some ironing out of what we call wrinkles in this particular case, because as we were talking, there are some things that came up, and MATC said, well, we'll go back and check on it. And so that's something that we'll have more guidance on certain things, nothing major at all. It's just trying to make sure that we're not trying to fit a square peg in a circle. We have to make sure everything is aligned. So I would say January, at one of the January meetings, we will be able to provide an update, and we may even do at some point a workshop of some sort. I think will be good, because this is huge. The impact that we could have on our students is huge, and there's going to have to be a lot of conversation of how that works and how that happens. Being very meticulous on the front end versus making mistakes and then coming back and saying, okay, that didn't work. We're really trying to make sure that we think this out and think it out thoroughly and crystal clear. The input of our principals was key at this particular meeting. I'm glad they were able to attend because they have information I just do not have, and they are definitely spokesmen for their students.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none.
All right. So we do have a couple of educators that I wanted to recognize on tonight. And for our two educators of the month, Mr. Daniel Chatfield, he is a counselor at Nathan Hill High School. Let's give him a round of applause.
We're gonna get involved.
We are going
We should have a bad.
We know our place. I'm getting a bad head.
So bad. I'll look.
Oh, I know.
I can see on that.
All right, 1, 2, 3, got it.
I'm still waiting. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm waiting right here.
And our final educator of the month is Miss Nancy Acevedo. Miss Acevedo is a Spanish teacher at Central High School. Let's give her a hand.
We went like.
34 years.
One, 2, 3. Perfect. Awesome.
Oh, she's got the perfect stamps and everything.
For you. One, 2, 3.
I'll put mark X's on the floor.
Community, Ms. Acevedo is in her 34th year as a teacher in her district, and she started out as an intern. At Central. So
Wow.
again, congratulations to you all, our educators of the month. It's not too late to submit for December. What's the deadline on that, Dr. Stewart?
The end of next week.
The end of next week,
Yes.
so that's like the 11th.
Yeah.
So December, it's not the 11th, it's like the 8th. December 8th is the deadline. So we want to urge you, anyone can nominate, parents, teachers, community members. Please nominate someone for the educator of the month for December. We want to recognize them. At this time, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Robinson. We'll move on with our agenda, start with item 7, our public comments. There's no one currently signed up for public comments, but I'll leave 15 seconds for anyone who may be in the room or who came into Zoom. There's a link in the Zoom chat if you would like to address the board. All right, seeing no additional sign up, I'll close public comments at this time and we will move on to item 8, our board reports, starting with 8.1, our review of our board calendar. Today, we have a regular Board of Education meeting, then we have a financial stability and efficiency workshop on the 23-24 technology department update and facilities and grounds overview. And immediately following, we have a closed session. On Monday, December 11th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, immediately followed by a closed session. And on Monday, December 18th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting. Moving on to 8.2, board committee reports, starting with 8.2.1, employee engagement and culture. Mr. Keller.
Thank you, President Lee. We met last Tuesday, November 21st. First thing we talked about is an update on the recruiter position. We've received 57 applications. 8 of those were interviewed and 5 were coming back for a final interview or are coming back for a final interview this Thursday. They're being interviewed by the HR team, the Director of Communications and Engagement, and the Engagement and Experience Specialist. Regarding interns, fall intern activity on November 16th, the district hosted snacks and soup event for the interns. Each of the 20 interns received invitations to the event via personal phone calls, emails, and visits from Dr. Robinson. They received feedback on the interns regarding what was going well, what we need to improve on. We reviewed different paths to full-time employment within the district, whether that's filling current openings, joining as a district building sub, and a regular substitution path. Talked about benefit information, how to obtain a substitute license, and 3 offers actually had been presented and accepted, 5 offers extended, and waiting on those candidate decisions, and 4 individuals are touring buildings. In terms of spring intern activity, 12 intern candidates have applied. Applications were forwarded to principals on November 7th, and principals are completing the interviews and sending offers. For job fairs, we are both winter, spring job fairs. Those are beginning, and we're scheduled so far to attend UW Milwaukee, UW Oshkosh, and the Private Colleges Career Consortium. And then we did have the second touch base with union leadership on November 13th. Again, those are just meetings that allow us to touch base and clear up any issues, bring forth concerns, and allows us to work collaboratively with the union. That's our update.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Keller. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Keller regarding his report? Or any suggestion for future agenda items for his committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Keller.
Thank you.
We will move on to 8.2.2, financial stability and efficiency. Ms. Kaiser.
Hi, thank you. We met last week, November 20th at 5 p.m. First amazing point of view note is that we have got back our 22-23 audit. We have 0 audit findings. We are beyond our yearly find of beyond, like, we have to use an outside agency. That's the only audit find we will ever find. And this is a huge win and milestone for our district. Transportation contract, we are still working on a contract that is fiscally responsible and allows for budget planning for several years. The board will have an action item for approval by the end of December. Longfellow, the board will hear proposals for the sale of Longfellow in a closed session meeting last week. We took action to approve the sale of Longfellow Elementary School to Housing for All. Independent audit, this is an audit of benefits for retirees and staff. It's the first time we've done such an audit, but it's useful for making sure all of our benefits are being utilized appropriately. Ergo, people get divorced, forget to take someone off their plan, or someone passes away. We want to make sure everyone's getting paid what they should be getting benefits. Wisconsin Public Education Network is an advocate for public schools in Wisconsin, and as a committee, we support joining this organization. Several years ago, AT&T reached out to various municipalities regarding the placement and leasing of cell towers at several of our district locations. Mr. Norris will be doing some more research into this consideration. And for the 24-25 CPI data, it's currently trending for the fiscal year 2023 at 4.2 to 4.5%. We won't know until mid-January what this ends up being, as there are 2 full months, November, December, left in the fiscal year. The current trend is that inflation is declining, so we should hold true. So should that hold true, CPI may end closer to 4.2% rather than 4.5. Either way, we are planning to try to maximize this for all staff in the 24-25 budget cycle. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Kaiser regarding her report? So I just want to echo the audit findings. So when I first joined the board, Brian and I first joined the board, the audit findings were 12. And then the year after that, our audit company actually fired us and we had to get a new one.
Yep.
And so it's been a large labor for us. And you know, having money is one thing, but making sure that the processes and procedures necessary to ensure the taxpayer dollars that we get are effectively and efficiently used is another thing. And that's what audits are used for, to determine that we're following the rules when it comes to grant monies, when it comes to the funds that we are given for taxes, that the processes that we have in place, our board policies are being followed and ensured that we're going to be doing that. We'll always find one audit finding. That's because we don't employ an accountant to prepare these for us. We pay Baker Utility to do it for us. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, that is always considered an audit finding because we're not doing it ourselves. But I personally think it's better to have an outside entity doing it. And it's more fiscally responsible for us as a district to do that as well. So we'll always have that one finding, but outside of that, having no other additional findings, I think is a very big deal. And it's a huge testament to the work that has been being done in our finance department, the people that we've had. We've had a number of financial managers over that time that helped start it and finish that work, but definitely a big kudos to Aaron Norris and his team who have been working on this over the last several years to get us to this point. So I think it's something to applaud, really. And I think we should applaud it. All right. Any other questions or any suggestions for future agenda items? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. Move on to 8.2.3, Recreation and Community Services. Mr. Becker.
Thank you. The Recreation and Community Services Committee met on November 20th. The entirety of the meeting was dedicated to the district athletic strategic plan. How are we going to go about inviting people? Who should be invited? And what should the meetings look like once we get people in? So the idea is just as we've discussed a couple times before, trying to find something that's a little more comprehensive end to end that covers the whole scope of what we do in the district for athletics. Something that's a little more cohesive and has a little more just a little bit better, a more clearly articulated vision. Like, what do we want it to look like? What are our goals as a district for the rec and athletics programs? The idea is to get some invitations out pretty soon. Shelly Strasser is going to work on that. And then the intention is to have a couple meetings, one in January we're looking at, and then another in February. And those will be with a larger group, and then breaking down into smaller groups to kind of get into like a little bit more detailed discussion on what are our strengths, what are the weaknesses, kind of a similar goal as the listen and learning sessions that Dr. Robinson has been running all of our town holding. I think that's about all I had. I was just going to say, as far as the timing of those meetings, the idea was to avoid the starting before the holidays and then losing momentum and having to pick it up again at the other end. So that's the rationale for the timing.
Are there any, that's it?
That's all.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Becker? I have a question, but do we have a set of goals? So I mean, you talked about consistency and like what is the, can you state once again, I guess, what is the hope is the outcome of having this put together?
Some of it has come down to, like, one of the conversations we had a month or so ago was around there was a program, and which program it was is really immaterial, but the idea is that one program was looking for a full gym for their practice. The only availability was a half a gym, so they just said no. And then it's just a matter of conflicting schedules, like who can we accommodate? What's a reasonable expectation? Should a fifth grade basketball team expect to get a full high school / gymnasium? Probably not. A varsity basketball team, they probably need a full gym. Just really setting some reasonable expectations, taking some of the guesswork out of the way our programs work. Trying to scroll back a little bit. I think in the previous conversations we talked about it. Just reading some of my rough notes. So we want to develop better district-wide philosophy and operations. So again, some things like as far as the co-ops, like we've been a little bit hit or miss, and we're trying to find greater consistency with those. As far as not making it an option. If there are not enough students at both high schools to have two different teams, it's a co-op. There's no argument, there's no discussion, there's no voting. It's just how we're going to approach it. I think that example is probably a really good example of what we're trying to do.
I agree. Let me tag me out. I'll jump in for a second. I think it's really about creating some consistency across the board. I think that's the major, you ask about goals. It's just inconsistent. You go from Hale to Central, it's one way, it's this way. We have to create the West Dallas, West Milwaukee way. That's one of the efforts that Shelly and I have talked about, and she agrees. Especially like with the co-op, the the team name, I think, was something dealing with the Blue
Mhm.
Jays or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out where does that come within our district?
Mhm.
You know, it should be the dogs, you know,
Right.
something like that, because they're both high schools have a dog as a mascot.
Mhm.
But that comes with consistency. Like, what do we do in instances like this? And I think that's what we're trying to do and just really create more alignment between the district and the schools.
Communication. No, that was
Yeah.
another big thing that we talked about too, is this will address communications, as far as, and just even disconnects, like when we were talking about, who to invite to these bigger meetings, from ADs to coaches to trainers to support groups to the different sports, like the gridiron for football. And now I know basketball has one. Wrestling wants to start one, so if they have one up and going by the time, then they'd be invited to, and things like that, just so that, again, there's that flow. Because a lot of times this group feels left out or that group feels left out. And the transitions from like the intermediate school sports to high school sports and getting that smoother, and what can we do to help build something to help get that transition better for these kids. So kind of all of that, just a much smoother functioning program.
These policies we're trying to create strong programs.
Mhm.
That's bottom line from, from youth sports all the way up.
Yep.
If we create that consistency, then our teams in high school would the evidence will be there when it comes, because these kids have been trained in this particular program all those years.
Yep.
It's just hitting the field and making it happen at that particular point.
Mhm.
And so it's about creating programs.
The comment about communication too, that was another hot button topic, was the idea of the coordination of the middle school to the high school programs, making sure that there's some guidance from one level to the next and a little bit better continuity.
Okay. All right, well, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing what sort of findings we get and what sort of strategies we have moving forward for that. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Mr. Becker or any agenda items to be considered at future meetings? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Becker. Then we're on 8.3, board member reports to community events. Any events board members attended they would like to report on? Ms. Kaiser?
I attended the FLW chorus concert, and I have to say, huge shout out to Miss Henderson. It was beautiful to see the TLC singers out there. As a former, as a teacher, it just made my heart happy. Also, congrats to Miss Klepix. It was her first choir concert ever, and you could tell she was like savoring the moment, and it was wonderful. Like the kids were harmonizing. It was a beautiful, as always, representation of our schools. And also just a reminder that next week, Elf Junior is going to be coming out starting the 6th. Seventh. I'm the worst parent. The 7th, get your tickets. They're inexpensive. I got my tickets already, and come on out and see what these amazing young people can do.
Very good. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Ms. Carr?
I did attend Into the Woods and I've attended several plays throughout the years. And this particular play, I think that what really stood out to me was the orchestra. And I just could not believe, they were so well tuned, no pun intended, really. They really were such an asset to the play. It really made it worth going just to hear them, as well as the actors, of course. And then I did go to FLW's orchestra winter concert. And the thing that really impressed me about that was there were over 100 kids involved.
Wow.
And it was really well done. And of course, Mary Pat Michaels, hat off to her as well. She's always, front and center when something wonderful goes on with our music department. And then interestingly, a freshman girl contacted me about buying some cookies for a fundraiser for new uniforms, whatever. And then she invited me to her game. So I went to my first ever freshman basketball team game at Hale, and they played their hearts out. We lost, but it was a joy to watch them. It really was. And now that I've seen those freshman girls play, I'll probably see that progress as they get into our city, and I'm looking forward to that.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Carr. Other events people can report on? Ms. Deal.
First off, I want to thank you to the community members who came out for our referendum session on the 16th. I think we got some pretty good feedback. Hopefully we'll have more people there in the next one. I was also able to, with Mr. Lee, go to, two Fridays ago, the 17th. We were able to go to the Man Harvest Party and then, the Wilson Game Night, which both of them were really well attended. It was great to be able to see all the families. And again, more outstanding work by our PTAs that just put a lot of time and energy and effort into creating some really fun family events. So it was great to see everyone come out for those two events.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to report on any events? All right, well, guess I'll talk about the things that I did. So, I didn't go to all of them, but just to mention a couple that I went to. I know that my wife and daughter also went to see Into the Woods, and my daughter, who was a fifth grader, thought it was hilarious. So she always enjoys the productions that are put on by our school district. So congrats to everyone who was involved in those productions. And then 8.4, other updates and information items. So I just want to encourage people to attend the referendum information sessions. Again, this is an opportunity to hear about what we're thinking. No decisions have been made. They won't be made for a while. There's a lot of more information that will be coming, but these are opportunities for you to hear firsthand from us as a district about what we're thinking about, why we're thinking it, and get the feedback from you. There's a questionnaire that we have asked everyone to fill out who attends. That questionnaire will be available later on after these sessions are done to people who are unable to attend the sessions, because we want to hear from everyone. However, we had 10 people at this first session, it was the first session. It was about a week and a half turnaround time to when we announced it to when we had it. We're hoping that as time goes on, that we'll see those numbers grow so that more and more people can hear about it, because we want them to have the correct information to understand the reasoning for why we're asking for these things and how it fits into the information we got from listening learning sessions, and also the information that we're going to hopefully get from the rest of the community as well. So please do mark those on your calendars, and please plan to attend one. And if you can't attend one, please see if someone else who did attend one could give you some information about that. And then there's always information that's available about these sessions as well as the referendum as a whole on our website. We have a website dedicated to this. We want to communicate this often so that people understand that this is something that is coming, and to be able to have the time now to find out what questions they might have so that we can answer them. So that's all I'd like to say about that. And other than I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. So with that, move on to item 9, our consent agenda items, starting with approval of minutes from a regular Board of Education meeting on November 13th and our board workshop on November 20th. 9.2, our employment summary. 9.3, our supplementary contracts. And 9.4, our financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated out? If not, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Just like it just thumbs up. Opposed? All right, that passes. And we'll move on to our workshop this evening. So we have our financial stability and efficiency workshop, 10.1, 23-24 technology departments that we're starting with, the technology department update.
Facility.
Or we're doing facilities first. All right.
Yep.
So we'll start with our facilities and grounds overview and move to our technology department update after that. If you able, Dr. Okay. Please take it away.
1 second. We're sharing it with Mr. Sikich right now.
Okay, Mr. Sikich, you're going to get the presentation shared to you shortly.
Okay.
Mr. Sikich, I see you. You have something to say?
It should have. It's in board book.
Took me a while to find my mute. I believe I have that because I think it was on board book.
Walk us through
The facilities
portion
one,
of the
right?
workshop, but just wanted a few comments early before they get started. So these are annual items that come before the board for you guys to get time to ask questions of the departments and really for Steve and Kevin to share kind of updates from their respective departments, mainly focusing on short and long-term goals. So short-term, what's happening this year, long-term, you hear from them about what are the plans to plan for the future. So each of them have time for you to ask questions before the next person takes their time to kind of go through what those goals are. So I'll turn it over to Steve Eichmann to discuss facilities, and then Kevin will be right after him.
All right. Thank you very much. So the agenda for tonight, just go through the staffing, the rationale for facilities management, the prioritization of projects, the projects that were requested or scheduled for this fiscal year, and then also the district office relocation, the timeline, the budget, and the pictures of the progress that's going on. And just I'll let it, you know, before I show you the pictures, that by the time the pictures are out there and they're published, things have changed because they're moving right along on that project. So, okay, so I wanted to start out with a kind of an overview of the staffing of the custodial department. As with everybody else, I think in every district, every state, you know, we're having a difficult time finding qualified, you know, responsible individuals to fill the position. So we thought it would be important to go through and just kind of show you that our custodians, which are our full-time custodians, you know, we have some at the elementary, secondary, and then we have one at CISA 1. The total number is 24, and we have one position that's unfilled right now. And that's due to a vacancy that we had where somebody retired, and so now somebody moved over, so we have a vacancy. Then you can see the different cleaner positions. We have 6-hour, 5-hour, 4.5-hour, and then 4-hour cleaner positions. And if you notice the trend there, that the unfilled there is 14, you know, out of about, what is it? But 23, and anyway, it's about 44% of those are unfilled. And if you look at the next kind, I'll come back to that in just a moment, but if you look at the next row, which is a Sodexo cleaners, and we had a contract with Sodexo to supply us with custodians / cleaners at our secondary schools, not at the elementary, but just at the secondary. And you can see there we have, you know, one 6-hour vacancy and one 4-hour. So you can see if you see the pattern there, it's that the part-time individuals are the ones that are the hardest to fill. And typically for two reasons. One is because they're lower paid, and it's also just 4 or 6 hours. And so you really have to have you know, a certain type of person for those positions, because they may not want or need to have full-time employment. They may not need benefits. They just may be wanting to get out of the house or supplement their income or something like that. The problem nowadays is there's so many places that are looking for those individuals that they really have a plethora of choices of where they can go. And even if, you know, I don't think there's enough individuals to go around to fill all of those types of positions anywhere anymore anyway. So I just wanted to kind of just bring that to your attention that, you know, and Mr. Norris and I, we have some things that we're working on and looking into you know, what do we need to do to address this? Because unfortunately, I don't see the environment out there, the hiring environment changing anytime in the near future. So, you know, we have to look at, think outside of the box and look, what can we do differently to fill these positions so that we can maintain the safe and clean environment at all of our schools. So.
Can you project at any point answer question?
You want questions at the end?
Sure. No, you can.
Is there a specific reason why Sodexo can only do secondary?
There isn't a rationale of why they can't do elementary. It's just the contract has always been for the secondary only.
Because this seems like they are more success, even with the 4, they seem to be a little bit more successful in filling. I'm just curious as to.
Yeah, and you know, and with any third-party contract, there's always issues. You know, so we've been trying to work through those as well.
I was just curious.
Yeah, it's one of those that it's that old thing of it was like that when I got here, but like I said, we're looking at, because the environment has changed, the hiring environment and the working environment, we're looking at what do we need to do to change so that we can hopefully, get ahead of this. Yes.
Have you thought about some sort of hybrid position where somebody who could be working in the school building during the day, maybe where there isn't the cleaner necessary, and then would stay after, like a half day in school, a half day after to clean, to try to make it a more full-time position, to make it more attractive, and try to address other needs maybe in the school building as to whether it's substitute teacher needs or EA needs or something like that. Like, I understand that isn't a thing and that's different skills, but at the same time, I'm just trying to think of something that would be more creative to address the problem, where we're still getting, the district is fulfilling two needs with one person, I guess, if that would make sense.
Yeah, right now we're really looking at anything and everything, just because the current system that we have is not working. And it's not sustainable to do this, because we have third-party contractors that are filling with some of it, and it's always a roll of the dice whether or not that's going to be something that's successful or not. The other is that we just need to look at doing something different, because what we have is you can see is not working. And the staff that is here, they're doing a great job. They're working hard. They're working overtime. They're doing everything that they can. Our custodial supervisors are trying to cover 3 or 4 schools at night cleaning. And there's only so long that that's sustainable, and then they burn out. And so that's why we're looking at what can we do so that we not only maintain the cleanliness of the buildings, but we don't burn out our employees too.
Would pay help?
I think the short answer is yes, but to me, pay is only an incentive for so long.
Yeah.
You have to really be invested and love what you're doing. And that's where it's been difficult to find those individuals that have a passion for cleaning and that. And I think it really, like with whether it's an EA, it's a principal, it's a teacher, or whatever. I mean, you really have to have a passion for that. Otherwise, money is only an incentive for so long.
Do we have any numbers about our pay compared to area districts, like with anything else when it comes to area districts, and they're all looking at the same thing, I presume, as we are, depending on the size. So do we know how we compare?
We're at the middle to lower end, because I'm part of the Metro Milwaukee Facilities Managers Group, and usually once a year they put out a survey of just that. What do you have for positions? What do those positions do? And then how much are you paying for those positions? And typically we're right in the middle of that.
Okay.
And just 2 quick things to mention. Steve kind of hit on this before, but really the 2 main areas right now we're working on is one, just as your question was at the time, Noah, salary and pay. Like, where does that stand? The second thing is consolidating part-time unfilled positions to full-time positions. It's the easiest way to translate to get a full-time custodian, higher rate of pay, full-time benefits, and figuring out how to have that staff. So elementaries, a full-time head custodian and a full-time night custodian. Like, districts that have that model have very less turnover. So working through that takes time, because people that are in these positions like them and have them for a long period of time. So working through those schools that have those openings, that's kind of the plan right now. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Have you looked at, these are after school for cleaning, a lot of these, the part-times?
Yes.
We looked at recruiting out of the high school for kids that just want some after-school work.
That's one of the things we've looked at before, because before I was here, that's something that we had done as well. And there are some restrictions depending on the age of them, of how, when they can work, how late they can work, how much they can work. And then if they're involved in after school activities and all of that as well. But like I said, at this point, we're really looking at everything and anything.
This guy's are.
I know it depends on adults who are available, but incentive of after school care. To anyone who will be a cleaner, you could work 1 to 5:30 or whatever it is, and then, 5:30 pick up your kid from action.
Yeah, and along that same lines, I know there's districts that, because I was at a conference recently, and what some of the districts are doing is, and we have that same issue as well, or concern, is that a lot of our 4-hour cleaners, 5-hour cleaners, they don't drive or have access to transportation other than the bus. And so, we may have a need at this school, but that school may not be serviced by a bus route. Well, we can't put them there because they have no way to get there. So what some districts have done is they'll take like the vans that we currently have, and they'll go and pick people up at their homes, drop them off at their schools, and then pick them up again at the end of their shift. And that's a perk, if you will, of getting people there consistently. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. So, and I know you that have gone through these before, these semi-annual updates. You've seen these before, but the reason for having a facilities management and having our own facilities management team is, we create integrated plans that account for the complexities and interdependence of the services provided, ensure all the facilities are lean, flexible, and effective, ensure life safety and regulatory compliance, provide these services that are demand and are necessary for compliance, and then also provide an environment that enables efficient execution of our core functions. And all of this all ties back to our strategic plan as well. Okay. And then this isn't necessarily in any order, but these are the items that we go through when we're looking at how do we prioritize a project. Obviously, safety and security is number one, and then there's regulatory and mandated requirements. Is it congruent with the facilities master plan that was done a few years ago? Scheduled replacement projects, the asset condition, impact on the operational budget, sustainability and or energy efficiency, and then timing and location. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is a list that it may not be comprehensive, but it's a list of some of the items that we did recently, in 23, 24, and when they were completed. You can just keep going through, and then, we just keep going. And some of them are currently in progress. Some of them, we have them planned for this spring and or summer. And then some of them, like the retaining the basement wall repairs at Horace Mann, that's something that is more involved. And so we have a structural engineer that's looking at that and working with them on what the scope of work would be. So that's why that says to be determined, as opposed to, giving a spring, fall or something like that. The other thing we wanted to talk about was the long-term capital improvement trust fund, or, shorter word of Fund 46. Just talk about that. And, that was created October 23rd of 2017. And you can see one of the goals is to utilize these funds to supplement our annual $1.5 million CIP budget. And then large cost projects that are approved as part of the long-term capital improvement plan. And then the plan has to be an approved, at least 10-year plan that's approved by the board. And then the funds can only be used for the purposes identified in the approved long-range plan. And the initial approval of the long-term plan was done with the replacement of the soccer field and the football field at the athletic complex. That's why it was originally formulated or created. So there are limitations on the Fund 46. I'm not going to go through all of these, but one of the things is that, and we had this discussion before with the funding of the fields, is that once that fund is established, no matter how much money is in there, you cannot access it for 5 years and 1 day after the board approves the initial creation of that fund. The other is that the funds can't be used for any other purposes other than Fund 46. In other words, you can't For example, like if we wanted to loan money to Fund 10 and then say, well, we'll pay it back when we get our money from the state. That's not something that can be done with Fund 46. Once it's in Fund 46, it needs to be used for those approved items in that 10-year plan. And the other is that, like I said, a minimum of a rolling 10-year CIP plan, and then it gives us flexibility for future projects. And again, it doesn't obligate us to complete those projects. It doesn't obligate us to fund those projects through Fund 46. This is just one more tool that we're using to meet the facility needs that we have. And then I know this is difficult to read, but I believe it's in your packet as well. So this is what we have proposed right now for Fund 46 for this year and then the next 9 years after that. And we talked about a little bit is that it has to, an item to be funded out of this has to be in the approved plan. And so that's why you see some of these projects, it may just say roofing. And it doesn't say which ones, because we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where we said, well, we were going to do roofing at Hale and maybe something else comes up as a bigger priority. And then we can't use Fund 46 because we just said Hale. So that's why those, some of those projects are just generic and they're just, kind of, talking conceptually about a topic. And that's why.
Is there a section that's like, 'cause I know, we just heard a big concern for folks in the district is security and safety for our kids. Is other than like, and I see fire alarm repair replacement, is there like a section that kind of more like addressing safety concerns?
Not through Fund 46. That's all coming out of Fund 10.
Okay.
So like we're improving the security cameras. And then one of the items in the couple of slides previous to this, it talked about replacing the security cameras. I believe it was West Milwaukee and Hale. That's coming out of Fund 10.
Oh, okay.
There isn't any reason to, that we couldn't put, security upgrades in here and include cameras, door alarms, like if the door is open for more than 10 seconds, whatever it may be. There isn't any reason we couldn't put it in there. We just haven't to this point.
When it says security cam installation exterior doors in process, are we just waiting for parts?
Yes.
That's what, yeah. Still.
That and installation,
Right.
because our electrician does that himself.
Okay.
And so he can only do, so many doors and that each week, because, if he could devote all of his time to that, it would go a lot faster, but he has other things that come up, an outlet is faulty outlet or it's sparking or arcing, whatever it may be, and he has to go take care of that. And so then it pulls them away. So.
Gotcha. Okay, I just wanted to, for people watching and knowing that we are taking this seriously, I just want to make sure that folks are aware of, there's also still a backlog of parts and materials,
Yes.
Yeah,
and it's interesting too, because one month it may be one thing, and then a couple months later you can get those readily, but then something else now is you're waiting for. Okay. Then on to the district off. Oops, sorry.
Just before we move on to that. So Steve, I gotta ask you. So I've heard about these bathrooms at Hale over and over again about on the fields. And I can't imagine when I look at your elaborate 10-year plan and I know you and how, particular you are about all of this. Who's in charge of upgrading those bathrooms and why has that not been done in all these years? And what is the plan to address it now?
Well, it's a twofold answer, I guess, to that. One is if you go to one of these slides, I think it does say restroom refurbishing. And it's at WAC, which is WAAC, which is the athletic complex, and then also at Hale. And the reason I said refurbishing is because we're not renovating them. What we're doing is we're just getting them back to a cleaner look, a fresher look. And part of the reason for that is because we're in the process right now of working on a long-range facility master plan for the athletic complex as well. And so what I don't want to do the same, as with the long-range facilities master plan for the district is do a bunch of work and invest a lot of money now, and then a year and a half or 2 years later have to undo part of that because we didn't plan ahead. So with refurbishing, like if you look at the, I walked through the restrooms at the athletic complex with Mr. Norris. They're clean. The partitions are good in the restrooms and all that. It's just old and outdated. And so what we're looking at is, clean up the floor, do some painting in there. Some of the old paper towel dispensers and things like that that are not being used anymore, remove them from the wall, patch the holes. So just do some, like I said, really refurbishing. And I chose that word because that's what we're really doing. We're not remodeling, because it'll be, I guess a minimum investment for a good return on investment for right now, but then it doesn't complicate things down the road if we decide, 5 years from now, and this is just hypothetical, we decide, what, that whole building there just needs to be gone and we need to rebuild something else. We haven't stuck a lot of money into that then, and then have to undo it.
Sure. So it sounds like it's just a bit more cosmetic so that when people visit, they're going to something that is clean and updated. Love to see maybe, as you said, painted. Love to see maybe some kids doing some murals or something in those bathrooms. That would be a great project. Just to make it more our own and to make it more unique, and have them talk about a mural rather than what they have been talking about.
Yeah, because the goal of doing the refurbishing for some of the bathrooms in Hale and then also at the athletic complex is that when whoever walks into those, they don't have negative adjectives that they say.
Yes, exactly.
But we plan to have those done before school's done this school year. So you're looking at paint, depending on if you're in the Hale school, new tile on the floor. The WAC doesn't have tile on the floor. It's concrete, so that'll get refinished. Partitions in the WAC will get redone, new fixtures in the bathroom. So it's more than just like lipstick pieces. It's going to get redone, but it won't be, as Steve mentioned, like a complete gut. Block walls aren't coming out, things like that, but it needs to be updated and the fixtures need to get redone. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
I saw on the plan from Fund 46, 200,000 this year for the WAC. Is that the bathroom stuff you're talking about, or is that other things?
It could be it is the bathroom, but it could be other things as well. And that 200,000 is something that we just put in there as a number that's ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there aren't necessarily specific items that are in there because, like I said, we're working on that long range facility master plan for there. And so it's just things that are, we know that WAC needs to have upgrades every year beyond the, certain things need to be done beyond just the regular routine maintenance. Like, for example, the shot put pits in that, maybe we need to replace the concrete or something like that. And so it's for things like that may come up.
Is there anything in particular for ongoing needs for our gym spaces and our theater spaces? So, I see a lot of things earmarked for our athletics, which is great, but we also have athletics that don't occur at WAC.
Mhm.
And we also have our music events and our theater events, which occur in our theaters. And with that in mind, do we have that as part of this plan? I mean, I didn't see anything in particular for those spaces.
There isn't in Fund 46 right now. There isn't anything that would preclude us from putting a line item in there. Because I think we've had conversations in the past that we could put a line item in there that said, theater upgrades or something like that. Even if we didn't put a dollar amount in there, because it's in there, and if you guys approve the plan, we can still do those type of upgrades then.
And a lot of those things you're mentioning come through Fund 10 through Steve's other budget. We just purchased, I think, basketball hoops for Hale. I met with Mary Pat Michaels last week about new risers and something they store things in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to get redone, but that comes from Steve's CIP budget too. But just not specifically listed here. It's a different fund.
Okay.
Yeah, like if we have bleacher repairs at Central, that comes out of Fund 10, not Fund 46. So there again, even though it isn't in Fund 46, it's not something that we neglect. It's just something that's funded through the majority of the time through Fund 10.
Okay, well, I think it's important to note that because, sometimes I think that our athletic parents and community are very vocal. And so we hear about those things. We heard about those things at the listening learning sessions. And I think that I just don't want the squeaky wheel is the only one to get the grease. And not saying that's what happens, but to make sure to note the other things that we're doing for our other groups that our students are participating in, because we don't want them to feel like they're being left behind because they're not being squeaky enough to get the notice to get put on these lists, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And with some of the theater directors, or I'm not sure their exact title, but I've worked with some of them over the last couple of years on, lighting replacement, or if we need to replace switches or whatever it may be. So there again, I've been working with them individually, whatever school it is that they're at. And then again, that's been funded out of Fund 10.
Okay. And I guess the big thing I'm thinking about is the floor at Central, at the field house. That floor, we can't host certain things because it's basically not safe. I know it's a big dollar amount, right? But, we spent $1.5 million at WAC for turf. So it's something that I keep in mind when we're doing these sorts of things, and it might be worthwhile to get figures about what it would take to update that. And I know the bleachers is also something else we had to basically have parts created for those bleachers because of that. And to me, that's part and parcel probably of a floor replacement, a bleacher replacement. Probably not cheap, but I think this is to me, Fund 46 is built for something like that. And so that's something I would just like to see, some figures on, so that we'd be able to consider that in future things moving forward.
I will just say, one of the concerns, because I've been after that central floor for a long time before I was on the board, because my kids went there. I know part of it is we don't know what's underneath that flooring. So there's such a variable there in terms of what the cost could be. I know that's a big issue, and I think that's why in the past we were kind of to some degree holding off until we had a better idea of what our long-term plan was within the district, because that is probably going to be a pretty significant cost. Steve probably knows more about that than me, but I've been following that for quite a while.
Yeah, just some of the preliminary estimates I've heard from people in the past was that like you said, depending on what we find and the extent of what we find, that just the gym floor replacement alone could be $1 million. Or more. And then if you have the bleachers, that could be another $750 to $1 million as well. And you're exactly right, President Lee, that in the past, when we've had to repair the bleachers at Central, I had to hire Rinderley Door Company, who had to fabricate all the metal parts, replacement parts for it. So I know people weren't happy with how long it took to replace. But when you have to have somebody literally fabricate all the pieces to go into it, it takes time and it takes more money. But, they are done and it works. And that's the big thing right now, is just keeping those working and keeping them safe. We've also, as time has gone on, we've had some of the actual bleacher seats. We've had to replace the boards there because they've just worn out or they've warped or whatever. And again, that has come out, historically, it's come out of Fund 10, but like I said, there isn't any reason we couldn't have a line item in Fund 46, even if we didn't have a dollar amount associated with it.
Yeah, I remember before Steve was here, actually, and this would have been when Andy Cromie was here, when Mr. Rohde was here in Steve's position. Now, they had looked into the central floor, the gym floor at Central, and it was such a multivariable problem that, again, as you mentioned, Mr. Keller, that they would give a quote to rip out the floor and replace it, but any extent of what was below it was additional unknown. And when you open it, it's like, then you're going to fix it. On top of that, the bleachers can't get removed and replaced. So if they get removed for the floor, you have to replace them too. So at the time, the bleachers at that time, this goes back 7 years ago now, maybe, they were $1 million then. So maybe it's a 40% increase. So yeah, you just get an idea. This could be, honestly, $3 million might be conservative to fix something like that. $1 million to replace the floor, $1 million for what's underneath it, and I'm 1.5-ish to do the bleachers. So that's at this point just in my head, but we can certainly get updated numbers as best we can.
I think it's worthwhile, and I think because we use that field house for so many things outside of athletics as well. And long-term in the district, I would see retaining that field house if anything else. Especially if we were putting money like that into it. To me, putting money into it is a commitment to keep that, to keep that field house in this district. And as we know, gym space is at a premium here. So I don't think we would want to lose it regardless.
Yeah, so I've made a note of that. So I'll look into that, and also the theater as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sikich has a question.
Can you hear me? All right, it's more of a comment. For years, I played senior softball out at Hale, and I was extremely embarrassed when other team members would find out that I was on the West Dallas School Board when the bathrooms out there were just horrendous. And it was always because the floor was painted or that kind of basement gray you put on. Is there any other kind of surface? Like you see these advertisements with the epoxy or whatever that is they put on your driveway in your garage that's more durable, because that was very embarrassing.
I was kind of smiling when you were saying that, because that's the very conversation we had with that floor, is replacing it with poured epoxy. Because not only is it more durable, but you also have a little texture to it as well. So it's not as slippery as it would be if it was just concrete or those little 1-inch ceramic tiles as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot easier to maintain.
Mr. Sikich?
Yes. Steve, I'm just wondering, could that put up with the abuse it gets from the baseball teams in there with their metal spikes? Because I don't know about that factor of it.
Complexes, we put those floors in, and it was very durable.
Thank you.
Good, Mr. Sikich. Anything else? All right, he's good. Any other questions or comments before we move to 9333? All right, thank you.
So, for the district office relocation, I meet with, we have standard meetings or set up meetings that we have weekly. Is different, excuse me, different, different groups of meetings we have, but we go over this every week. And one of the things that they always provide is a 3-week look ahead. And so you can see with this that it has the interior existing remodel, it has the clinic remodel, it has the addition, and it goes through and it looks at 3 weeks. And like I said, we got this one last week, and so it's a week behind. But it goes through and it kind of gives you an idea of what's coming up for, the upcoming week, we're looking at 2 weeks out. And one of the things that you can see on there is that we have a above ceiling inspection tomorrow in the remodeled area. And what's important about that is that once we have that inspection and we pass, and we have every reason to believe that we will pass, then we can start putting in the ceiling tiles, putting in the grid work and all of that, put the ceiling tiles in, the lights and all that. The other thing that's important, I'll touch on this a little bit later too, is that tomorrow is the 28th of November. On the initial plan that we had of our timeline that was like 3 or 4 sheets long, the date that we had for doing the above ceiling inspection was November 28th.
Wow.
So we're right on schedule with that and where we want to be in terms of the overall project as well. Okay. So here's some, this is the clinic framing. And so this is the exterior wall that's along their parking lot. And then you can see that the block wall and the column painting, that's on the right-hand side. That's the side of the maintenance area where maintenance and IT are. Okay. This is the storefront framing for what'll be on facing 9333 West Lincoln. And then you can't really tell it here, but this is a ramp going from West Lincoln up to where the main entrance will be. Okay. And you can see that here the upper left-hand corner now is that same area, but with the paving in, and some of the curb and gutter. You can see that again on the right-hand side. And then the clinic storefront framing, they have that all set up. And I know at the time we started having initial conversations about could the clinic stay there, or should they stay there, or, should we go out? I know that Mr. Norris and I and others walked through there. Well, for a long time, there was just plastic sheeting that's what the wall was. So you could hear all of the traffic. You could, whether it was cold or hot. And so it really would have been unsustainable for anybody to be there. And then, somebody want to come in and talk about whatever medical issues they may have or whatever. And then the other, you can see some of the interior painting that's being done. And what I wanted to let you know is that, so for 3 of the walls, you will have our standard color. And then what we're doing is we're alternating offices. So this one has the blue that's in our logo, and the next one over will have the orange that's in our logo. You'll have the 3 walls that are the same, but then you'll have one accent wall. And so we're alternating the offices. So we'll tie in the logo colors that we have, like on your shirt. Okay. This is one of the interior hallways at the remodeled area. And then the West Hayes Street entrance, we're redoing that, or we redid that as well. Okay. And then this is some of the new sidewalk and curb and gutter that's by the clinic entrance and along their parking lot there. And with some more, and then on the right-hand side is the West Hayes Street relocated entrance. A couple of things that we did with that. One is that we shifted it over, to the left of where it was. And the reason is that we had the loading dock, where it is, and then the entrance was offset. And it was offset probably by about 25 or 30 feet. And so given that they're entering and exiting on a residential street, it wasn't conducive for all truck drivers to be able to stay off of the neighbor's property, but also maneuver that. So what we did is we moved it over now so that the approach lines up with the loading dock, and we also made it wider. So now, even though we're still on a residential street, it should make it easier for the trucks to back in there and to also leave. And then that's just more pictures of the approach. One of the exciting landmarks was getting the structural steel for the addition up. And the timing worked out great because it was that week when we were like in the low 50s or mid 50s and there wasn't any rain, because what they literally had to do for all of the vertical beams that you see, they had to cut through the existing ceiling and then go down in and tie it in with our existing steel beams that we had inside. Excuse me. So the other thing is that you can't necessarily tell from here, but Kevin can attest that the server room is right below part of where we're drilling in through the ceiling. And so we needed to make sure, and we had quite a few meetings with Kevin and his staff and the contractors and all that to make sure that they understood, here's what you need to do and how you need to do it. And this is something that is not negotiable because we have close to $1 million, if not more than $1 million worth of equipment in that. Not only is the money part of it, but if that goes down, that's the backbone for the entire district, for the phones, for the internet, everything. And so I think, and hopefully Kevin can attest as well, that they've been really good to work with in terms of, here's what we need, here's how you need to do it, and always asking us beforehand as well. Not waiting until the day of. So, it's been a coordinated effort to make sure that it goes smoothly. They're thinking that by the end of this week or the early part of next week, they should have the decking on the addition and they're hoping then the parapet as well. And our goal is, hopefully the weather, I know we had some snow this last week, but we can get that all enclosed, hopefully soon before it gets really bad out.
Yeah, to say there were concerns with the data center was putting it mildly. We start poking holes in the data center and we have all that equipment, water, and that doesn't, but they were really great to work with. They met with us. They assured everything would be blocked up. They put extra plastic up.
They also had to remove an air conditioner that's above there. They brought in a temporary unit, and I think Bruce said there was even a second one there to make sure to keep the data center cooled while there was work done. So no, super job getting everything, taken care of, work, and no water leaks or anything like
Which
that.
company?
Well, it's a subcontractor that's doing it, but it's Bray Architects and CG Schmidt. And
Yeah.
CG Schmidt is a general contractor. And that's,
I want to
and
give them a shout out for doing a good job
yeah,
there.
and that's one of the benefits, and we've talked before about, going with the companies that we've worked with in the past and we trust. That we know that they're going to listen to us, they're going to work with us, and they're going to do what we need them to do, when and how we need them to do it. And like I said, there hasn't been any consternation about how are we going to do something? Is this going to work? Or hopefully it'll be okay. There hasn't been any of that. We've had, plans, we've had backups to the backups. And even, looking at, we had 3 new servers that Kevin and his team had that were, and they were going to install those now. And so we're like, well, it really doesn't make sense to install them now if we're going to have to, open up the roof and all that. So what Kevin and his staff did is they took the servers that were there, the 3 new ones, took them off site, and they're programming them there. So that when we're done with all that, they can bring them back and it's ready to go, and we haven't missed a beat. So sorry if I stole any of your thunder from you. But the point is, it's just, that's how, conservative of an effort it's been to work together and really take a team approach to this, and, get to certain points and say, okay, this is what's coming up. What are you concerned about? And what do we need to do to make sure it works?
Mr. Sickett, you had a question?
Yes, Steve, on the West Hayes entrance, where you moved it over, I can't tell from looking at it on the screen here. Is that going to be green space to the east of the drive, or is that parking space?
Talk about with a backhoe.
This one right here.
Yeah, there'll be a combination of green space there. And there's also an island that's in the middle of the parking lot as well. And that was,
okay, I couldn't see that on the
we
last
need
picture.
to account for, retention of rainwater. So that's why we have that island that's in there as well. And there was also a tree that needed to be removed that was on the terrace. And that's I think it may be being replaced. I know it's being replaced, but we may be replacing it with 2 different trees.
So will our allotted parking spaces stay the same, increase, or decrease?
Can you switch the audio back? Sorry, can you say that again, Jeff?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, has those changes, has that increased parking spaces, stayed the same, or did we lose some on the east side of the building?
Yes, we've lost, I think, 4 spaces from what we had there before.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know, Steve. Thanks.
There will still be more spaces there than there are here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Sickett, is that all right?
Yep, I'm good.
Ms. Carl, you have a question?
I just want to say that I live right over there, and I walk my dog by every single day. And I have to say, they are working day and night. They were working weekends, they work nights. It doesn't matter the weather. And I've just enjoyed watching progress.
Good. Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Okay. And that's it. The other thing that I wanted to say is, like I said before, that we are on time, and we are at and below budget. And we've also, as you know, we talked about having to replace that cooler and chilling tower, or cooling tower and chiller before. And so at that point, we took out the replacement of the storefront windows in the IT and the maintenance area. We've been able to add that back. We've been able to Also do some revisions to what the L&L addition will look like. We've had to redo some duct work, and we also added 100% redundancy for the HVAC unit with having ice storage. And we've done all total, all of those are about almost $600,000 in value added items that we've done. In addition to that cooling tower and freezer, and we're still a little below budget.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Well, that's great to hear. Glad we could get those extra things out. I know we had to make some adjustments when we figured out what the actual cost was going to be initially. So glad to see that we were able to get those ones replaced. It'll help with energy efficiency as well as aesthetics to make the building appear more cohesive. So that's great. Any other questions for Mr. Eichmann before we move on with our technology? Oh, Mr. Sigich.
Thank you. Excuse me. Just a comment. Steve, I want to thank you and Aaron for all this work you're putting into this. It is very much appreciated on my part.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Eichmann, and we'll move on with our technology update.
All right. Agenda, go over the department staff, talk about a little bit technology plan, and then their main focus, safety and security. Our staff, right now, we got 120 combined years of service with all of our staff. Very dedicated, low turnover team players. I'm the manager, Kevin Clark, and I've been with the district for 24 years, and I've been working in education with technology K-12 for 35 years. Bruce Heisler is our network engineer, and he's been with the district 11 and a half. Karen is our network database specialist. She's been here 19 years. And then our technology specialist, we got Dan Amundsen, who's been here 33 and a half years. He takes care of Frank Lloyd Wright, Franklin, and Wilson. Preston Brown, the newest team member, he's been here 2 years. He takes care of Hale, Hoover, and Irving. Tim Byron has been here 11 and a half years, takes care of Jefferson, Pershing, West Milwaukee. Shenard Haywood, 7 years, Central, Mitchell, and Horace Mann. And Brandon Schmitz, 11 years, admin offices, rec department, Dotke, Walker, takes care of all the board meetings. You know Brandon well. And I want to give a special shout out to Julietta O'Brien, who was with our department, and she was here for 15 years. And she ended up retiring this year, and in a way fortunate, good for her. Congratulations for retiring. But that allowed us to keep Preston, who was new man, because we did have to reduce one FTE because of the school consolidation and of lack. So we had Julietta that was here 15 years, and she just retired this summer. So that is our staff. The technology plan, it's our current 3-year plan is expiring this year. It ran from 21 to 24. It was board approved on June 14th, 2021. And the purpose of the technology plan is it provides focus, direction, and alignment between the technology plan, equity beliefs, and district strategic planning. We're currently in year 3 of the 3-year plan, and there's a link to our current plan. Items that we addressed in the 21-23 plan, we got new iPads and cases for elementary and Lane at the time, new Chromebooks for intermediate and high school buildings that replaced unsupported Chromebooks. We updated Apple TVs and replaced projectors as older models failed, and speakers for the classrooms. The current tech plan is expiring at the end of this year, as I mentioned, so we are actually in the process of developing a new district-wide technology plan it'll be for the 24-27. So you will see more information. We'll probably have a board workshop and present that to the board towards the end of the year. We have a committee. It consists of district staff and parents. We held our first meeting on Wednesday, October 25th. We gathered information. We developed a needs assessment survey. That survey has been sent out to all district staff and parents. We have our next meeting tomorrow. So we'll be doing a follow-up. We'll be reviewing those survey results. On the team, we have we kind of work together with instruction and technology. Instruction, make sure we're putting in information that and technology that will fit with the teaching and their requirements. And then the technology department, we have members there to make sure with the equipment that they're requesting can be supported and sustained and is, efficient and will work well. It's future meetings. So we have one on November 28th, and then we'll have a follow-up meeting on January 8th. And then we'll have another one on January 30th. We hope to have the plan finalized by then, and then we'll be working to get that for the board. Yep.
As a teacher, I cannot work without my Promethean board, like my BenQ or Promethean. We just got Promethean upgrades. I really do feel the need, like I see teachers using projectors. And so then you lose a whole bit of wall space using a projector, which you could be putting anchor charts on. I know it's a cost, but have we looked into like smart panels for classrooms?
Yes, not like district wide. We just purchased almost all of the IMCs have, they're the new line Q series smart panel.
Okay.
And those are multiple ones. They're looking at ordering additional ones. And we are looking at, there is a large cost, but with the cost of the projectors, the way they've gone up, it is something that we're looking at as an option. There actually is going to be, I think, 8 of them at the new district office. Any place they're going in, we're putting in smart panels instead of projectors.
I would just like to see it like as a district priority when it comes to technology, like what I can do in my classroom on a Promethean board and have students learning and showing me in real time and all this stuff. And I know, we all know what the budgets look like, but I think it would bring our teachers so much faster into the technology and what we can do for them. And also for student learning, it's not just a projection on a screen, it's interactive and all that, and I know that. I want to put that out there that I could not teach without a board anymore.
Yeah, it is a really amazing technology.
Yeah.
When we were demoed, it just completely replaced the smart. It's basically, we had the old smart boards, which you projected on and you could draw on with pens and different things. These new ones, it's an interactive TV. It's basically a large touch panel TV. It has all kinds of apps that you can put on and control. You can draw on it, you can dictate, take notes on it, you can do screen captures, it'll store it all and share. So yeah, amazing technology. I think projectors these days are running 700-800. I think for a 75-inch panel, I think they're about 1,800, 1,500. So like I said, we just got them into the schools at the end of last year, this year in the IMCs, and they are using them. There has been some excitement. I definitely see we will be talking about that in the technology plan. I don't think it's sustainable to put one in every classroom from the start, but if, to start looking at it, I think it's definitely something that will be addressed and looked at.
Just real quick, Evan, I was going to mention this in a future board update, but the state and the federal government announced recently that there was going to be a 25, don't quote me, 25 or 30% increase in common school funds. So that's about, I want to say, close to $200,000 of increased budget dollars that can be used for media, library purchases, things like that. So that's something that we just found out like 2 days ago. So we're working through that, working with.
Some of our classrooms, like mine's attached to the wall, but there are ones that you can roll in. We have a few classrooms that have rolling.
And that's exactly what have to happen. It couldn't be something forced to the classroom. It would need to be accessible to all kids, but that's exactly how school districts now are working out of the old library model, from books to computer labs and things like that. So that's certainly an option, given the technology plan likely couldn't support all of that. So,
yeah, with the common school funds, it has to be in the library and checked out. It can't be something purchased for the classroom, so it would have to be on a cart. But they do have mobile carts. I believe all the IMCs got mobile carts, so they can move that around. And so that would be something, if there was additional common school fund money, you could have something that a teacher could check out and take in their room. I don't know if it's got to be a week or two, every 2 weeks, it's got to go back to the library and then check back out. But that's a restriction of the common school funds. But that is definitely an option.
I was just going to ask kind of similar question, but I worked at a district recently that didn't actually have a panel.
but had the smart board. Where it worked off of the projector, it was just the pens that did it, and I found that extraordinarily helpful because then you could still have your whiteboard to work with. And do the quick things that you want, but then you could also just turn on the projector and away you go. So exploring options out there for what we can do would be really great.
Yeah, we did. I don't know if they're doing much with smartphone. Almost everything has gone to the new TV style where you can do that. We do have quite a few smart boards. I know Walker, at one point, they had one in almost every single room. They were a big smart board, and then there was a couple scattered throughout some of the other schools that did have some smart boards. So we do have some of those. We also have, they were the old, it was called Mimeo. The problem is the support has gone downhill and they didn't work. There's teachers that just love them but we can't get them to work with the newer, they just haven't updated the software.
Yeah, no, those are terrible too. But no, I just really like the ones that worked off of the projector just for the flexibility. Both for the kids and then for just running the classroom. So, and it's not a TV screen or anything. It's just projected.
Yeah, just like a whiteboard. Yeah.
So,
okay.
Ms. Carr?
Promethean boards is that a brand name, Kristen?
It's a brand, yeah.
Okay. So I would like, for some research to be done on different brands. I just caution, being in our district for many, many years. We've invested in things. I can remember when the smart boards were the thing, and it was like, how could we not have a smart board in every classroom? It was that feeling that you got with that new technology. I mean, and I've seen through back when we had Macs in all the classrooms and iPads, and now really, is it a Chromebook or is it an iPad, and which one serves better? And so I really feel like we really need to be cautious as we look at all new technology, if how much we are going to put into that funding into.
Yeah, when we did some research on the panels, we initially looked at it, we consulted with CDW, who sells to schools across the country and what they've seen. And one of the things we really liked about the New Line panel, number one, they had a rep that was local that came and demoed the equipment. One of the first things he did was just amazing. He basically pulled the thing out and he literally smashed it as hard as he could with his hand. And it's like, oh my God, and it's just, they're bulletproof. They come with those panels particularly, they come with a 5-year replacement warranty. If there's any problem, you basically call support. They'll walk you through a few things. If they can't fix it, they'll take and ship a new panel to you. You get that installed, take it down, put it in a box, ship it back. It seemed to be a real quality product. And, so we did some research. We can definitely look at other. Now, your Promethean panels, are they TVs or are they the whiteboard? Are they the newer TV style?
It's the TV style. So like mine's attached to my wall, but then like I have a USB port I can put into my Chromebook and it automatically does everything in my Chrome. It's got the whiteboard setting, which sets up with like graphing and line paper and a million different things. Like, so as a teacher, like you can also screenshot. So what I love is instead of having anchor charts all over my classroom and sifting through papers, I just pull up the screenshot. And so as a teacher, it's really nice that you can build on what you did the next day, go right back to it, saves paper a little bit, So it's just something I would love and want for our teachers. And at most, if we can get more into the libraries, that could be checked out or something to that effect, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, it's a nice way to like trial things out with the teachers, and especially when you get 3 teachers who love something, they can try it out. Maybe then it turns into 10 the next year, and it gets some camaraderie and some energy around something. But I also agree, like you don't want to buy something that's like a flash in the pan. So I think what Kevin's described is a great inter-district partnership with the instructional department, because they're the ones driving what's best for kids in the classroom. And Kevin's working on his side of, is it supported, is it not? So that's the work of the committee over the rest of the year, really, is to figure out what are teachers saying, what are principals saying, what's the leadership from the C&I department saying, how's that supported from the technology infrastructure? Is it sustainable? What's the support look like? I mean, that's the work. And I think those are all things, hopefully, in the next 4 or 5 months, when it comes back to you guys, we have those things ironed out. So
I look forward to hearing what you guys come back to us with.
And along with any new technology, we have to have training for staff as well, to be able to use it. Kind considering we're doing the technology plan right now, and we're also talking about a referendum in 24 in which technology has been posited that could be part of it. Has any thought been put in the committee about what that could look like? So, I mean, there's things that we could afford to do with no additional funds. But I also would like to hear about, well, what's my pie in the sky that I could do if I had additional funds to do that, specifically coming from the referendum? Because I think in order for anything like that to have any, come to any sort of fruition, we need to have like, well, this is what we would want, this is how much it would cost, and this is why we think we need it. And I think your committee is designed to figure that out, but I think it's more designed to figuring out what we can do with the money we know we have versus the money that we could have. And so has there any thought been put into the committee about thinking about that?
And I'm sure we will. We haven't, like I said, we just had our initial meeting and we kind of developed our survey. So we will definitely talk about that. And I think we'll have, you know, these are things that we can fit because we got to build it into the budget and fit in the budget. But if there was additional money, you know, these would be additional options that we would look at or like to put in. And I think we can build that into the plan.
Okay.
And I can definitely bring that to the team and make sure that we do, you know, add that.
Well, I think it would be smart. I mean, I don't know what the committee is going to be interested in supporting, you know, we're in the process of trying to figure that out. But I think if we say, look, you know, here's the things that we could do. It would cost us much money, you know, is that something that you think would, that as a community, you would want to support? And then especially staff's like, yeah, I think this would be a really good thing. It'd really help me as a teacher to be able to help do these things in my classroom. I think that would be something that would help quite a bit in trying to figure out, you know, how much money do we need? What do we want to use it for? And how's this going to affect our achievement with our students?
Okay. Safety and security. Cyber insurance, just wanted to let you know that as part of the district insurance coverage, we have cyber liability insurance policy in place. The provider is Wisconsin Educator Risk Management Corporation, and we have $1 million in coverage. And our deductible is $50,000. So we do have some cyber insurance in place. Security audits, we had 2 outside companies provide a network security audit last year. They were performed last school year. They provided insight into potential security risks, offered solutions to patch risks discovered, help prioritize which risks to resolve first. So we've been going through those lists and implementing policies as we can fit in the budget, and ones that, you know, simple ones that were just simple clicks or changes. And we're continuing to go through that, and we will be most likely conducting a new audit in 2024 to kind of compare the 2 years later. Where are we at? Where do we need to be? Obviously, technology changes. There's new security risks that are found. So that'll probably be just an ongoing thing that we will start and continue to do to keep the district safe.
Kids are brilliant at working their way around everything.
Yes, they are. Know Before, you've probably heard, but that's the company that we use. They provide our security training. So everybody is required to take security awareness training at the beginning of the year, along with some of the other trainings. We also do monthly tests for all staff. Every month it resets. So come December 1st, we'll get a whole new batch of emails that'll be sent out. They're sent out random, different times of the day, different days of the week. And it's just all randomized. It's randomly generated emails with a whole slew of categories that can be used. If a user fails a test, they're automatically enrolled into additional training, and we have different levels of training that we have them take. They also have a fish alert button, which has been helpful. And that's a simple way for users to report suspicious emails. So if they do get an email in their inbox that looks suspicious, they can report it. It automatically goes to us. We could review it and then decide, is it a threat? If it is a threat, we can take appropriate action to remove it. If it's just spam, we just report that as spam, or if it's a clean email, we can let them know. If the email is a security test and they use the fish alert button and click on it, they will be notified. Congratulations, this is a test. You know, you passed the phishing test. So they do get some feedback on that if it actually is a test. And after they do report the email, it's just automatically deleted from the user's inbox. One of the interesting things, and you may look at this graph. So this is fish prone. And when we first started out, we were at about a 7.96, and you can see we slowly dropped down to 309, and we shot all the way up to 23. And it's like, okay, well, what happened there? Well, there was a couple things. Number one,
I didn't do it.
number one, they came out with some more artificial intelligence for sending emails out and knowing what people clicked on, and they built that in. I also increased the difficulty of the test. I included things that may come from like HR, some real world things that people are going to get. So it definitely shot up, but you can see we're on our way trending back down as they're becoming aware of that and continue to take the training. So I was initially shocked when it went up, but I usually have a meeting every month with our Know Before consultant. We go over the different results. We look at different trainings we can add, tweak things for each time as we go through it. And, assures us that, we're in a downward trend, which is a good thing. And they did expect it when we went with that new AI setting that it would go up and increasing the difficulty at the same time. So.
One of the things I just want to mention, because this stuff can get really fast. I know that's happened to a lot of districts. So there was, I forget when this happened, but it was this past fall. And if you follow the news, there was an error in the federal clearinghouse, maybe a month ago. And I don't know the details on what happened and why, but it was like a 36-hour glitch with the federal banking system. And so a local district, I want to say Greendale, again, don't quote me, they had payroll the next day, and our server caught the emails that were going out, and theirs didn't, and their whole payroll system crashed the day before teachers are gonna get paid. And so they had to manually go in and do that. And can you imagine the issues that caused for that school district? So just shout out to Kevin and his team, because these issues can get really quick, and they seem like minimal things. Oh, an email here, what's the big deal? Well, it can be a huge problem, especially if things line up the right way. So.
Yeah, one of the big things we did from the security audit is we did remove admin privileges from standard from all users. So hopefully if they do click on a link, it won't be able to execute. But these criminals, you just have to keep up with the criminals, because they just are smarter and smarter, every day, and they know how to get you. And so we'll continue with the training, and we'll keep using this. It's been very helpful, very productive, and very decent purchase that our department has made. Some of the new projects we're working on, this is a safety issue, Informacast Fusion. What this is it's a mass notification system for emergency and daily communications. You can expand this to pretty much everything, but it'll work with our existing phones and intercom, and it'll allow paging over all phones. So we're working on getting the server set up. But what somebody will be able to do if there is an emergency in a building, they'll be able to dial a code on the phone, and they can get over, and it'll ring all the phones, the intercoms, and go out, and they can broadcast a message to the school if something is going on with that. You can actually integrate it into the new line panels. We could integrate it into I think the Sodexo TVs. There's all kinds of things that can tie into it. You can get smart speakers that go up in the room. There's not an intercom, but for right now, we're going to focus on using the phone system. So the servers have been installed. We're working with CDW to complete the final implementation, and we'll start doing some testing with that. But that's something we worked with the safety team. It's something they've been asking for. A lot of the schools have been asking for an all page, so they can just hit a button and page everybody in the school. The next thing that we're working on, the big project, and this was alluded to earlier by Steve, this is our Nutanix installation. And what we're doing is we're upgrading our virtual server environment. And that is what houses all of our servers. Currently, we just have one system at 9333, and we're going to upgrade that, and we're going to have one at 9333. And then we're going to have a complete backup system at West Milwaukee, where it's going to be duplicated. So if anything goes down, it'll offer redundancy. We'll get additional space and computing resources. So we're working with CDW. We had the initial kickoff on October 23rd. All the equipment is in. It is an E-rate project. The total cost was about $153,000, but because we're using E-rate, the district, it's only costing us about $60,000.
What is
We're using federal funds. It's federal funds, and it has to do with the old telco, and there's money. We do a lot of projects with E-rate, and our district, for most expenditures that is E-rate eligible, the government pays 80%, we pay 20%.
wow.
So now this isn't a true 80-20 split because there are items on there that are not eligible. And not everything is,
Right.
so we built that in and we did what we could. When we upgraded our wireless network, almost all of that was E-rate. Buildings like this building, rec center, where it's non-educational, you can't use E-rate, so we have to pay the full price for I think our access points, our wireless access points are like $900. So we end up paying, pennies on the dollar when you're only paying 20%, but in educational facilities, we do have to pay the full boat. So it's not always a true 80-20, but we're wisely using that money. And this is the project that Steve mentioned where we were going to start installing the servers at 9333. And then we had the meeting and said, oh, we're going to tear off your roof. It's like, you probably don't want to install new equipment there doing that. Made complete sense. So we kind of pivoted. We're doing the setup at West Milwaukee. We got all the equipment there. We're going to get it all configured, set up there. Then once we're ready, we'll take and we'll move that back over to 9333 when we got the clearance to install the equipment, and then we'll get everything tested. The other thing down the road that we are actually just talking about is while we'll have redundancy being at West Milwaukee, we don't necessarily have a full redundant fiber system. So if the fiber gets cut, but we may be looking at least installing an additional full set of fibers at West Milwaukee so it can distribute it. It may not guarantee full connectivity, but we'll have connectivity on each end of the district if anything were to happen. So we're going to be looking at that down the road. We'll get this project kicked off first. All right, that's all I have.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions?
Thank you very much.
I'm learning about E-rate.
Yeah, we actually have an E-rate consultant that we work with that helps us. So it cost us some money to do that, but they know how to dot all the I's and cross the T's and get everything set. So it's all approved and it has to get submitted. You have to put out bids. The bids come in and then we go through a bidding process, award the bidder, and then it gets approved by the government and then it eventually gets funded. Some of it, depending on how it works, like with CDW, they're like a direct bill. So when we get the bill from CDW for this project, they will only bill us for our portion.
Oh, wow.
And then they bill the federal government for the rest and get paid. Other items like our WISC-net, which provides our internet. What we have to do is we pay that in full, but then we submit a form and then we end up getting reimbursed from the government for that money. So depending on how the project is set up, who the company is, some of it we have to pay up front, we get reimbursed, others the company will bill. Correct.
Questions? Well, thank you very much for the update. Looking forward to hear what the next technology plan will hold. Use sometime in the summer, we hear about that for the next year. And yeah, so I want to see what we're going to do in the next 3 years in the district for technology. So thank you for all your work on that. And looking forward to getting your new server room with a completed roof. Doesn't leak, so that we can get everything in there appropriately. All right, so seeing no other questions, we're going to end our workshop at this time. But before we take our 5-minute break, I do want to get a motion a second to convene into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 parent 1 parent F, for the purpose of considering a student disciplinary expulsion order, which if discussed in public would likely have a substantial effect upon the reputation of the student involved.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, please have roll call.
Mrs. Carr.
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee. Yes. Ms. Steele. Yes. Mr. Sikich.
Thumbs up.
President Lee.
Yes. All right, we'll take our 5-minute break. Mr. Sikich, I'll see you on the other link.